Alright, I wanted to bring you back here. I'm working on the Mercedes some more, trying to get this front cross member replaced on the where the bumper bolts to on the front of the car. And I got it all cut out. Didn't find anything out of the ordinary there, thankfully. There was no extensive rust in the frame rails or anything like that. So it was just typical repair. Clean up the ears where on the front of the frame rails where the cross member attaches to, and drilled some hole. I set my piece in there, got it centered up, marked where it's going to be set at, and then I drilled holes, as you can see, which are now filled in the cross member so I could do my plug welds. Did 3 on each tab there, 4 across the bottom, 4 across the top on each side. So I've got the back piece in, welded up and set. And I went ahead and cleaned up the underside of this front nose piece while I had everything out of the way, so I got all the paint off of there. I've got holes punched in the front part of the cross member. Everything's been treated with some weld through primer to give it some protection before we weld it, and that's where we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and get the front half of this cross member put in. That'll leave that section here done. Then I think I may continue on with my exploratory surgery on this fender and see just how bad it is, and I may contact the owner at that point and see how open he is to getting a replacement fender for this side. They are a bit pricey, but in the long run, I think with as much damage as there is to this fender, that's going to be the best route to take. I think the driver's side is not as bad. It's got some rot here. I've got to get that side, but I've already replaced the lower heel on this side, so I may actually be able to use some of this right side fender to make repairs on the left side if I go ahead and replace this whole fender. So that's where we're at with that. I'm going to get back to welding. Well, I've been doing some exploring on this Mercedes, and I'm a little disheartened by what I'm finding. First of all, we've got the bumper support installed, both pieces of it, so that is completely finished and ready. And I decided to go ahead and take a look into what's going on with this fender. This is the new headlight bucket, but as you can see, there's a lot of that fender that's missing. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this yet. This new headlight bucket sits in there like that, so it does pretty much give me something as a guide to try and fabricate pieces for this. I'm not really sure yet if that's the route that I want to go. I have to weigh my options. Again, fenders are available for these cars. They are not cheap. They're about $1,400 a piece, and they're not bolt-on deals either. These fenders are welded into the car and molded into the body. The whole front end is all one piece, so it's a lot of work to change one. Then again, this is a lot of work to try and repair what's missing here, and what's missing here. This side's going to be as bad, if not worse, than that driver's side. So again, I've got a headlight bucket for this side and a fender repair piece for this side. As you can see, I mean, we've got just sections here where, I mean, I've got nothing. I've got nothing really to go by. I pretty much would be guessing as to the contour and everything for this fender. So I got to think about what I got to do here. I may try and guess how many hours I would have into fabricating something for this versus just replacing the fenders. When I figure that out, I'll bring y'all back. Back here in the shop, it's a couple days later, and I did a thing. I got looking at these fenders some more and thinking about the price of new replacements versus what it might cost to fix them. And so the more I looked at the left side fender, I thought, well, I've already fixed the back part of this fender. Why not see what you can do with the front? Now, my biggest concern on these was being able to reproduce this area here, because this is it's a very tight radius, and it's also curved horizontally. So this is not something that's easy to fabricate. The rest of these areas, after I got looking at them, they weren't too bad really once you looked at them. Like I said, I did have a new headlight bucket, so I was able to use that as a guide. Once I got the old ones out, I could set it in there and kind of fabricate pieces around it, and then start to form any pieces I needed for the fenders. This down here was another concern of mine because it's curved in this way and it curves around this way. Challenges. I'm not one to walk away from a challenge, so what we ended up with is this. Like I said, I put my I took out the headlight bucket and I set in the new one that I had already purchased, and from there I screwed it to what was remaining, and then I started making pieces. I made a top piece along here, there's a piece along here, another short piece here, another piece here. This is all original from here up to here. And from there, then I was able to go ahead and start making my other pieces. I made this top piece here actually was fairly easy to make. It's just really just a curved piece of metal. This piece over here had a little bit of trickery to it. Then you get down in here, you got a double curve, but it worked out well. This piece over here essentially is fairly flat almost. It's got a slight bit of curvature to it this way, which is easy to put into it. And then I made a small piece here so that I was able to recreate this body line right here, because this body line does carry all the way to the headlight trim. The headlight trim actually has a small bump out in it that ends that body line. I think, now we'll go look at the other side, I might be wrong. Nope, they did mold that back in. So we wanted to make sure we carried that line up into the headlight trim as we formed all this. And then I made a piece here. Now this section here, which was one of the pieces that I was concerned with when I thought about how I was going to make all this stuff, because this is a very tight radius here. This whole front, this carries all the way across the front. Tight radius this way, and then a curve on the horizontal plane also. So complicated piece, but it actually wasn't too bad. I used a section out of what I had left from the outer wheelhouse on this right side, which pretty much gave me this tight radius here. I got it welded in at the top and along the sides, and then I worked the rest of it down, back and around once it was in there, and I think it came out really close to what the original was. Once both sides are done and the body work is done on it, you really won't notice any differences. But this over here was a little tricky too. Again, with these double radius curves here, I made this piece and then put a section in here, so it all worked out. So in the long run, would it have been easier to put a fender on it? I can't say. Like I said earlier, the fenders are pricey for these cars, and then the time to change them, because these are actually welded to the car. I had to remove the lead. There was lead in here because this is a seam right here, and then the bucket would have come out of it, and then there was more lead in here, and then there's a seam here. So the fender attaches here in the bucket here, and then I'm going to guess somewhere is up in here there's another seam that I would have had, and that would have got into possibly having to remove the windshield, unless I sectioned the fender in a different spot, like somewhere's along here. I don't know, but I think this in the long run works out better. I always like to leave as much original sheet metal as possible. So that's what we did. We left the majority of this fender. We've got the patch done in the back here, and now we've got the front of it all rebuilt. And once this gets the final body work done to it, this will be a nice solid repair, unlike before where it was just packed with fiberglass and Bondo. That would never last. So here's our headlight trim, which, as you can see, will go in like this. And I don't know, I'm pretty happy with the way that fits. And I did fit this as I was building all this, so I kept referring back to this. I'd put this up and make sure I had all my contours right, and that the headlight trim was fitting good. So again, it was a little test of my fabrication skills, but it's been a while since I've had to really do anything this extensive as far as reconstruction work, and I wanted to see if I could still do it and have it come out right. So that's where we are on this. Now, I didn't take you step by step through this because the process was going on in my head as I was doing it. I didn't know exactly how I was going to go about making all these different pieces, so it would have been a lot of recorded video time that would have been edited out into basically nothing. But I do have to do the right side. So if you're interested in seeing the process I went through in order to do this, I will document it on the other side, step by step, not the whole thing, but I'll go through it in phases as I'm making different pieces, and show you the procedures that I use in order to shape the metal here without having a lot of metal shaping tools like a English wheel or a planishing hammer or things like that. I do have a bead roller, which I used a little bit, but most of it was done by hand. I've got a small brake that I use. Majority of all these pieces I made just by hand, or using just common everyday items that I have around the shop. So if you want to see that process done, this process done on that side, let me know in the comments, and I'll go ahead and document that whole repair on that side. So that's going to bring this video to an end. I'm going to take a few weeks off on this car. I got to go back on the truck. I appreciate everybody watching. You know what to do with these videos. Again, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.